Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to Team Success. Today, we are going to dive into one of my favorite topics, and that is sales. And I have a wonderful expert, Steve Heroux, from the Sales Collective, to really talk about sales coaching, sales hiring, sales profiles. You know I'm a profile junkie. And I was introduced to Steve through a good friend and former client, Kate Norton. And Steve, it was delightful to meet you. Really interesting to do the sales DNA profile. And thank you very much for being on the podcast, because this hiring and training and keeping great salespeople is a Herculean task as far as I'm concerned. And searching for the right people can be a real needle in a haystack. So I was super excited because I'm like, ooh, this could be the answer that I've been always wanting. And I want that for our company. I want it for my clients' companies. So I haven't implemented it yet, but it's something that I want to explore. And I'm thrilled that you're here. So thanks for joining me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I don't know if it's the answer. It's an answer for sure. But I'm excited to share with all of y'all what Sales DNA is and what we do and how we can sort of flip the script on how salespeople are thought of, because it's not endearing. So
no,
we might cover that.
That's interesting. Okay. Before we jump into that, and I think that's where I'd love to start, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get started? How did you find this? How did you land on this? Because clearly it's a passion for you. How did your entrepreneurial journey happen?
I am probably the last person who would ever end up in sales. I grew up in Boston and didn't say a word for the first 18 years of my life, practically. So think of the shyest person you've ever met, and then think of someone that would be shyer than that, and that was me. No dates, no dances, no proms, nothing. Somehow got into a really expensive business school in Boston and got my first semester of books, and cost me $1,600 for 5 books. And so I was like, I got to help my parents pay for this. And so I answered a job ad, and all the ad said was $10 an hour, part-time job, and a phone number. And that was it. And so I called the ad and I said, hey, what is this ad? You got like those pull tabs and stuff all over campus. And they go, it's sales. And I said to the gal, I'm like, so would I have to like talk to anybody, or do you have like a desk job or something? They go, yeah, you have to talk to people. What's wrong with you? I said, well, there's nothing I could do in the back or something? They're like, yeah, no. I said, well, what would I be selling? And they go, we'll tell you when you get down here. So I went down, I got hired, right? Because I was alive and upright. Went home and told my parents, and my dad goes, how'd it go, Stevie? I'm like, good, Dad, I got the job. He goes, great. What are you going to be doing? I said, some of you probably will already know what this is. I said, I think I'm going to sell knives, Dad. So we have Cutco knives here, right, in the States. A lot of people have in Canada too, but my dad, who also is Frank Costanza from Seinfeld, George's dad, some of you might get this, didn't exactly have a positive take on this. So forbid me from doing it, told me to get a real job. And so that was freshman year of college. By senior year, I was number 1 in the country selling Cutco knives from a kid that didn't talk. And so they did what every company does, right? They go, hey, Steve, you're good at sales. Want to be a sales manager? Companies continue to do this. Please don't do this if you're considering this. There's a reason that airlines don't make the flight attendants the pilots the following summer. So I struggled, and still leading folks is not the same as selling to folks. And so I ended up being really successful leading sales teams. Then I went to the insurance company with the duck. And some of you know what Aflac is, and spent 13 years with Aflac. And somehow in my heyday, 59,000 agents did worse than I did. So I'll let you figure out what that means. So when I left Aflac, just realized I had a real passion more for teaching and coaching. And so sort of went off on my own, built a training course for Aflac agents that I went travel the country and taught them.
Right.
I ended up saying, hey, I could do this whole virtual thing. This is prior to the pandemic. And I was doing a lot of coaching through Zoom. And I went to Costa Rica with a friend of mine and said, you know what, I'm just going to move here. So moved to Costa Rica and lived there all of 2019. And right around the end of 2020 is when I got introduced to the sales DNA test, which you took and, had flying color scores. And my buddy with Aflac's the one that made me take it. And he goes, hey, Steve, you got to take this assessment. And I'm like, Mike, I don't like these. Not predictive. It's got nothing to do with sales. He's like, no. This one is legit. I'm like, fine. So I took it. And when I saw my results, like when you saw yours, right, I wanted to jump off a bridge because I'm like, man, you stink at sales, right? How did you sell so many knives and so much insurance? But when I saw the results, no one ever taught me 97% of what's on the sales DNA test. Nobody ever taught me. I never heard of it. And so after I saw my results, I was like, could you imagine if I knew any of this, right? I would have been number one every year, right? Not just 1 year. And so the next day I shut down my Aflac training business and built what we have today with the Sales Collective, with the idea of sales DNA test is the MRI. Why don't we build custom training, right? Physical therapy to, help people fix their injury, not just, hey, let's give everybody the same training, right? And so that's sort of how it was born. And probably a month after that, I did a talk for something called the Sales Enablement Society. And this nice woman was like, you need to be a Vistage speaker, like now. I'm like, what does that mean? What is Vistage? She goes, you don't know what Vistage is? I go, no. She goes, just you need to apply. So anyway, I did, now 4 years later, I think I've done 320 or something talks for Vistage. So that's sort of how it all began. And so thankful and humbled I get to do what I do for a living. And people ask us all the time, what do you do? What's your talk about? What's your company do? I say, well, we try to undo 99% of what people have been taught about sales and sales leadership. So that's what gets me up every day.
I love that. Well, congratulations. I mean, that's quite a transformation for someone who was so achingly shy to be number one for.
Yeah, you should have seen my high school reunions. They're like, you do what? You're a speaker? Like in front of people? I'm like, yeah, lots of them. Like, you're Steve Heroux, right? I'm like, yeah.
There was a hidden gem in there, just had to come out.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
But the Cutco training is superb, as is insurance. Well, you may not agree about the training, but the push out into the market and just test yourself against it, same with insurance, is pretty powerful. Yeah. So kudos to you for finding your unique ability.
Yeah, the list of Cutco alums is long. I mean, some of you have read The Miracle Morning, right? Hal Elrod. There's just so many, right, that started there and wasn't the easiest thing, but trained us, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Awesome. So before we jump into the sales DNA, because that's going to take a minute and there's so many amazing dimensions of it, let's talk about what the perception is of sales. And again, for entrepreneurs, often they are the number one salesperson for their company, as they should be, because they're often the most passionate. They understand what we call the dangers, opportunities, and strengths of their clientele, and they are able to customize often on the fly exactly what it is that will be the solution for them. So it's not cut and dried. But then as they want to get freed up to even do what even they're more unique at or go to a higher level of clientele or value creation, they need to replace themselves.
Right.
And everyone's like, well, I'm unique. How can this happen? And then finding those people can be hard. Profiling them is hard. Having predictable results is hard.
Yes.
The crash and burn rate is hard, right? So let's talk about the perception of sales. Let's talk about sales leadership. And again, there's a standard, which I'm going to say is corporate, which is not a world I relate to. Right. But even just let's talk about sales in general. And it's interesting because I think to what you're going to say is that people don't like run with both arms pumping into a sales profession because it has a bit of a negative rap. Right. So let's chat about that. Let's talk about what sales is really. Let's talk about the perception of it. And let's talk about the transformation that you'd like to see.
Yeah, it's funny when you said that they don't run into it. I haven't shared this in a while, but 55% of people, roughly, the last study in sales, never intended to go into sales. Yeah. So that's one. But the perception of salespeople, and will never change. It's never going to get better. This is how it's been for 100 years. There are multiple professions that are the least trusted. Y'all can look up the surveys. Do you know what two of the ones that are similar to salespeople that are distrusted the most? What two professions?
I can only think of used car salesmen, but that's a sales profession.
Yep. Attorneys, politicians.
Oh, no way.
That is the equivalent. So yeah, we're not in a good spot. One of the most amazing studies done on this was part of Daniel Pink's book, To Sell is Human, which is amazing. And Daniel's amazing. And the study was also done in conjunction with Adam Grant, who's also incredible.
Yeah.
And they asked people, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word salesperson? And y'all can look it up. It's on Google or whatever, ChatGPT, a summary. But in the word cloud, right, of people's answers, okay, the largest word, and it takes up almost the entire word cloud, the most common answer is pushy.
Oh, okay.
Second most common answer is yuck.
No. Where's manipulate?
It's on there.
Yeah.
Yuck, sleazy, aggressive. It's just horrible, right? And so you get this sense of, is that really how we're thought of? Yes, that's how you're thought of. And when I give this in big keynotes and talks and things, and I ask the audience, I said, who caused this? What's the answer? What do you think most people say? Who caused this perception of bad salespeople?
I think most people would say salespeople. That's
what most people say. If a dog is bad, is it the dog that's bad?
No, that'd be the owner.
It's leaders who have caused this, right? This is why people hate salespeople, because leaders are pushing their own agendas right down the throats of their salespeople, and they go, sell or die. What do you mean? You don't want me to sell to the right people? No. But I should only sell to people who really need what we have, correct? No. But I really just stick to our ideal customer profile, correct? No. So who do you want me to sell to? Well, see, if anybody comes within 3 square feet of you, them.
Kind of to your point, if they're breathing and upright.
It's awful. But that's why people hate salespeople, as there's zero concern for whether or not they need, whether or not they could use, whether or not it benefits them. Again, this is a huge part of what we have to undo, especially with leaders, because again, they think for some unknown reason that assigning some arbitrary quota to a salesperson that was made up in a boardroom from spreadsheets from a year ago will somehow get the salesperson to go, honey, I am so excited for tomorrow. I don't know if I can sleep tonight. I can't contain myself, right? And their partner goes, why? And the salesperson goes, you're not going to believe this. I get a chance to raise my company's EBITDA tomorrow. I can't even wait. Nobody's ever said that ever in 10 million years. And that's somehow what leaders think, or private equity. Like, McFly, is anybody home?
Right.
Salespeople care about 2 entities, 4 if you do it right. Themselves and their families. And that's it. And then if you do it right, as a future leader, entrepreneur, business owner, you want to grow, it's the people that they work with and their customers, most importantly.
Yeah.
And my coach, Pamela, she might have been the one that told me this. I'm not sure, but she says, Steve, just because somebody wants to buy something from you doesn't mean you should sell it to them.
Yes.
And if she didn't say that, well, you just got credit, Pamela. But
there you go.
Some amazing person told me that. And so saying no is really hard. And we say no a lot more than we used to. But most companies don't. And they certainly don't teach it to their salespeople. It's just, hey, are they alive? Yeah. Do they have money? Yeah. Cool. Sell them. Sad.
So that's really interesting, because if I think about our strategic coach approach to things, it's being very, very clear on your potential clients and your real clients' goals, what their dreams are, what their dangers are, what their opportunities are, what their strengths are. I know for us, we have a right fit client criteria that is very specific, right? It is a narrow niche in the marketplace. EOS helps people define that. So that sounds to me how I would label a bureaucratic or corporate sales environment.
Correct.
And you work with Vistage, which is entrepreneurs, last time I checked.
Yes.
Do you find that same mindset with entrepreneurs, or does it shift a little bit? Or is it left over from there and they just don't have a new model yet?
It's left over. They don't even know any different because that's what they were taught. And especially entrepreneurs, it's way worse.
It's way worse.
Way worse. Because if you're in corporate America and you have a bunch of money-hungry salespeople and they sell bad deals, like they're not all going to sell bad deals. because you have a big brand, you have hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, it doesn't matter. If you're an entrepreneur and you do this to people, you might lose your company.
Yeah.
Like, that could be it. And if you don't know how to sell, which is most entrepreneurs' challenges, right? They know how to build software. I know how to manufacture this part. That doesn't mean you know how to sell it. And that's where so many entrepreneurs never get the scale they want. Because just because you can build it doesn't mean you can sell it. And so if you do not hire the right salesperson, which they are also untrained at, what's the chance that you have success? You're putting the future of your company into a salesperson, a representative of you. And if you select the wrong one, the results could be devastating. That's part of the challenge, and why, if as a younger business person, if I would have known this stuff as an, oh my God, it's been a different story, but I made all these mistakes.
Yeah. So paint for me a picture of an enlightened entrepreneur, sales leader, coach, because that's part of what you do and your company does. So paint for me the picture of what it could be, would be. I don't like should, too gap for me. But what do you work with people to get them? Where do you want them to go or get to?
Well, you sort of said it with strategic coach. Like, you can't just take on clients because you need revenue. That will kill you. It's the opposite of what should be done. You have to be more selective at early stage in your company, more selective, not less selective. Because if you take on a bad client, a bad customer, a bad vendor, whatever, and it's early on in your company and something goes wrong, they will scream that from the mountaintops. You won't recover. Second thing, you take on a bad client, bad customer, you're wasting endless amounts of time with people who, number one, don't deserve your time, but number two, will use it up. Now you have an unprofitable company, an unprofitable deal. That's also killing you mentally, not just physically, not just bandwidth wise, but that's not ever taught. Early stage, oh, you need revenue. We got to see the numbers. No, you don't.
Right.
You need good revenue, right? You need sustainable revenue. You need long-term clients and longer lifetime value of customers and higher average order or average deal size or whatever it is you want to call it. But that's never taught. It's just go get some sales.
Right.
That's the worst thing.
So I love being more selective. I mean, that makes complete sense. We coach exactly how to pinpoint that in Strategic Coach Program. So being more selective, saying no, which takes courage, right? You have to have that longer term perspective. We have our 4 C's, which is commitment, which immediately begets courage, which feels crappy. You know, it's scary as heck. Then out of that develops capabilities, and out of that develops confidence. And I know as a beginning salesperson, when I signed up someone who turned out to be a horrible fit for Strategic Coach, and I had to refund the commission. That was a hard lesson that I never made that mistake again.
Just made me think of something. This actually came up in Minnesota a couple days ago. Refunds, right? I don't know how I made the connection, but then I made the connection to accounts receivable. So there are companies, not entrepreneurial, luckily, but there are companies who have entire departments of accounts receivables because customers aren't paying them. Just re-listen to what I just said, y'all. They have entire departments of customers who aren't paying them. Most of the time, it's because they were a bad customer to begin with.
Right.
If you never took them on, you wouldn't have to waste time and money and resources and collections agencies and all these things. There are entire industries that exist because salespeople and companies take bad customers. It's scary.
That's a really good point. You know, we talk about simplifying to multiply, because if you want to multiply complexity, no sane human does that. So part of growing is being really, really clear about who you best serve, what your unique ability is, what your company's unique ability is, how you create value for them. Dan has an expression, the narrower the niche, Canadian American, whatever, the bigger the market. But that's a really scary thing to do, especially at the beginning when you're not cash confident. So I totally appreciate that.
And it's never done. This is the issue.
Keep refining it.
You met Kate and we talked about our roadmap and sort of EOS's connect. There's so much connections between all of us, but If a company ever came to us and goes, hey, help us grow sales, right? Help us hire someone. I would say, you don't have enough money. They'd say, what do you mean? I go, help you hire somebody to execute what? They go, well, sell these, coffee cups. No. You don't even have a process built. No. We will build the process right now from soup to nuts. From the second a lead comes in or a phone call comes in or a web or anything comes in to full service nurture, all of that has to be built before you ever even consider hiring a salesperson. And this is the mistake that 99% of entrepreneurs make, right? They have this great product or service. They go, oh, I got to get someone to sell it. No, wrong. You build the sales process. You build the playbook. Then you hire the person who fits the skills, mindset, competencies where they can sell that thing. That's why DNA is important. Then you teach that person how to execute your playbook. But that's not what's done. Yeah. And they have Canadian football, but some folks listening here, right?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Understanding it.
It's a longer field, just so you know.
Longer field, only 3 downs. But in the NFL, for you NFL fans, right, there's 32 teams. Okay, 32 teams in football. Even the Jets count. So 32 teams. I'll ask you, actually, how many...
Oh, no, don't ask me a football question.
You'll know it. How many of the 32 teams have a playbook?
All of them.
Why? They know how to play football. They make millions a year.
Yeah, but each person has their own expertise. If they don't know how it all integrates together, then the play is not going to be successful. They're not going to win games.
Do they practice these plays?
Absolutely.
How much?
Every practice.
So I asked this last week in Iowa, or almost every time. Sometimes I forget. On a Sunday in the NFL, the games are 3 hours long. Have you watched them on TV? The clock says 60 minutes, right? It's a 60-minute game. Do you know how many minutes, they're actually playing football? Do you know this number?
Isn't it 60?
14 minutes.
No.
14 minutes of running and passing. 14. That's it.
Interesting.
So on a Sunday, NFL players work 14 minutes. By the way, not all of them, because there's only 11 on offense and 11 on defense, and 35 are not doing anything on either sideline. So to prepare for those 14 minutes, an NFL athlete from Tuesday to Saturday puts in 60 hours, 60 hours of preparation for 14 minutes.
That's cool.
And when I ask companies how much their salespeople practice and role play and film study before their 14-minute demo, it's not 60 hours. But the point I'm making is there are 32 teams in the NFL, 32 playbooks.
Yeah.
How many of the 32 playbooks are different? Or is it all one playbook? Here's the playbook. It's called football. So how many different playbooks out of 32 do you think there are?
I think every team would say they have their own playbook.
32.
Yeah.
Why? It's just football. Why don't we just run all the same plays?
Because then it's too easy to beat.
This is why.
Yeah. So this is interesting because some other coaching we've got, and it was Bill Cates, who's a great person on referrals. He goes, we're talking about referability.
I saw him speak once.
He's great.
4 years ago.
Yeah, awesome.
Funny.
Super smart guy. He said, to be referable, you need 3 things. Referable product. I was like, check. Strategic coach, amazing program, all the things.
Yep.
You need referable salespeople? I'm like, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Then he said, you need a referable sales process.
Yeah, 100%.
And Babs and I looked at each other. Babs is co-founder of Coach, and we looked at each other and went, gulp. Because as many salespeople as we had, that's how many sales processes we have.
Correct.
And process was probably a nice word. Now, since then, we've worked our rear ends off to get a sales process and a playbook. Yep. And then, Salesforce has been helpful with that because you can structure it. Yep. But it's a work in progress. And I think we've probably been working on it for 8 years.
Yes.
It is not easy to do. So I find that very correlate with our experience. And I think that's a really great point. And then hiring people who will run those plays.
Correct.
And work on their own skills, like same as like strength or running training for football players, is key. So that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, it's never done, though. What companies do, if they were a football team, right, they look at their players, their salespeople, and go, hey, there's the field. Yeah, score. Sorry, what? Yeah, just score some, go long or something. I don't know. You figure it out.
Yeah.
That's what they do. It's crazy.
Makes me think of Ted Lasso. Now, just briefly, are there some key elements of a sales process? I would love for someone listening to go, yep, I got that step. Nope, missing that one. Is there kind of some highlights? Because I know you coach a whole process on the process. Yeah, we will not get all of that.
No, there's a lot, but I will start with probably the first section of what matters is your go-to-market strategy. Mm-hmm. And the very first thing, believe it or not, is the why.
Yep.
Okay. Why should would I, do I get behind this product I'm selling? Mm-hmm. So many people know Simon, who's amazing, and Start With Why. And it's just funny. Simon's book, Start With Why, which is millions of copies. It wasn't even supposed to be a book. It was a chapter in another book. And his coach said, hey, Simon, get rid of all this crap. This chapter is the book. That's how it starts.
Oh my goodness. Right? That's brilliant.
Pretty crazy. So when we talk about a why and really driving the passion behind why you started the company towards your salespeople and having them understand where this all was built.
Yeah.
But the best analogy I can give you for a why isn't Simon's, actually JFK in 1962 at NASA headquarters. So he's walking down the hallway, he bumps into a janitor and asks the janitor what he's doing. And the janitor said, I'm helping to put a man on the moon, Mr. President. Mm. That's the janitor I want.
Yeah.
But that's also the salesperson I want.
Right.
If the salesperson is not so excited to wake up every day and live her life the best as she can and represent this product, company, service, whatever, like, you have no shot. But what entrepreneurs don't understand a lot is that no one will have your passion. So to expect someone to do that, it doesn't make sense. But if someone has 80% of the passion you have, 70, 90, but that has to be your role. Mm-hmm. If they are the janitor who says, oh, I'm just going to sweep the bathroom and I'm out of here, and that's your salesperson, you're in big trouble. So working with a company to help them deliver that message to their applicants, not when they hire them. This has to be in the process of interviewing. If an applicant sees somebody like that and is like, oh my God, I want to represent this company, that's all part of recruiting, right? So the why is really important. And the second part, just of go to market, is what you said earlier. It's defining their ICP, right? Who's their ideal customer? Profiles the P in that. And so we've got to flesh that out. And you have to ask your customers, if anybody's listening to this, please, please, please poll your customers. We just did this with our company and we got feedback from like, I don't even know, 230 clients or something. And we said, okay, why did you hire them? So we asked them that. And most of the time, right, to generate revenue, you know, whatever, right, improve hiring, whatever, blah, answers. Then we asked them, what did you get out of the engagement with them? And the answers were shocking. The number 2 answer was they made it fun to go to work again. Like, we liked doing our jobs. And then the number 1 answer was, in essence, paraphrasing, but they put the fun back in sales for us. Yes. We had so many people that shared that, like, they didn't even like what they did for a job every day. How could you do that? And if that's your salesperson, of course they're not going to be successful or perform highly because you've turned it into a job. You've made them a cog or a notch on the belt of your EBITDA. And when people are treated like a number, everyone on here knows this. You know it when you're treated like that as a customer. Well, how do you think salespeople feel when they're just a line item in a spreadsheet as an expense? It's crazy. And people tell us a lot of stuff they don't tell their bosses. So that's how we learn this stuff.
Oh, yeah. This ties brilliantly into a coach concept and conversation, which is treat people as investments, not costs. Because how any smart business person treats costs is you try to minimize them.
Yep.
That does not work very well when you apply it to humans.
Yep.
Now, and what do we try to do with investments? We want to maximize them. So when we treat people as costs, like as a cog in a wheel, as you said,
Yep.
they'll, I mean, we're very much relationship focused versus transactional, but that becomes transactional.
Yes.
And then they have transactional communications with your prospective clients and your clients. And then the whole thing goes to heck in a handbasket. So yes, I'm all on that investment. And so when people feel like they're being invested in and cared about, and I mean, fun is a technical word in my world. It's not a frivolous thing. It's like, it's super enjoyable. It's connected on a heart level, not just a head level. People engage their striving instincts when they care, right?
Like Marcus, Marcus Buckingham, right? It's like,
of course.
Love and work. Oh, what a surprise. What an interesting concept. Love the people you work with, right? Help them thrive. That's your job as a leader, right? Is to help people realize their own superpower and then help them achieve. That's the role, not to assign what you want them to do. Yeah. But this is not common. And I'd rather be uncommon, I guess.
Well, so would we. So let's start moving into the type of person who will run that process, because again, process was probably a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But those two things are super helpful, because some people will be a right fit from a personality, striving, mindset perspective, and some people will never be.
Yep.
Despite your earliest shyness, you clearly were the right fit.
Yeah.
So I'm interested because I know for me, it's just a certain look on the world, and either you kind of have it or you don't. And that's part of what I got from Sales DNA.
Yep.
Is it's either kind of there, DNA, or it ain't.
That's the will to sell. That's everything. Everything is the will to sell. Everything.
Yeah.
And if someone doesn't have it, and we can talk about it, but if they don't have that, there is no chance. No chance. And we have the science to prove it, especially with what we just got back a month ago.
Right. So let's talk about the whole sales DNA profile, and then we'll go into the bits.
Sure.
Will to sell is, if I understand it correctly, there's almost like 3 hoops to jump through. And if people don't have the will to sell and they don't score highly on that part of it, because it actually is more of a test even than a profile, I think, because you can kind of flunk it.
Sort of,
If you think it that way, you would be a not recommend, right?
Right.
There's will to sell, then sales DNA, and then tactical. The whole thing is also called sales DNA. And some of it's learnable and some of it is not. Some of it's factory installed, as we like to say.
Right.
And I do think some people, in coach terms, it's unique ability. And I think for a lot of people, entrepreneurs, business owners, they're thrilled to really discover and hone in on their own unique ability. And they want that for their team. But sales, there's this tussle between, okay, great, you do you, and we need results.
Right.
And I think one of the things I appreciate about what I'm learning about sales DNA is this is where you can find the people who have that natural unique ability. Here's how you can develop it and not dissuade people from doing what they love to do anyway. So it kind of is that integration of having people do what they love to do and are best at, and produce results in a very predictable fashion. So before we dive in, talk a little about where the profile came from.
Sure.
The thing that I appreciate, I get exposed to a lot of profiles.
Yeah. There's only 2,500.
Exactly. I've done a decent chunk of those. And as much as I love the one, which Avenger are you? It's not exactly valid.
Yeah.
And so if I recommend something, it's because I've curated a ton.
Yeah.
And I found this one kind of fascinating. Again, we have not installed it in Coach, so I can't give you our company experience, but I can give you my personal experience.
Yeah.
So where did the profile come from? How long has it been around? And then your company, Sales Collective, uses this. It was created outside. So tell us a little bit about that background, and then we'll dive into the bits.
So to go back to when I first took it, in Mike, my buddy in Aflac, who used to run Aflac New England, who told me to take it. He basically said, if you don't take this, I'm never talking to you again. So I took it.
Good friend.
And I said, why should I? He goes, dude, I've been using this for 20 years, right? And I go, I never even heard of it. Because OMG, who's the company, by the way, Objective Management Group, doesn't do a lot of advertising or stuff like that. They work through partners, right? Like us. And so when I took it, and I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And so he had used it for years, but I never heard of it like most people. So we call it the sales DNA test. That's my name for it, right? But it's Objective Management Group's, assessment, right? And there's an assessment for a salesperson. Then there's one for a sales manager. Then there's one for a sales leader. Then there's one for leaders, not in sales. So there are different functions of the test. So that's how I first heard about it. And then after I took it, I'm like, well, how valid is this? Because we've all been through lots of tests and personality profiles and all these things. The first part, someone's personality has about zero bearing on whether or not they're good in sales. And where this came from, who knows? But it's probably from the people selling personality tests, like vitamin C cures colds, right? Gee, who came up with that? Oh, funny, the people that have vitamin C in their stuff. So that's part of why so many folks are frustrated with assessments, because the overwhelming majority, they're not data companies, they're marketing agencies. And so we ask companies, like you mentioned a Avenger thing, like, what assessment do you use for salespeople? And they go, well, we use the Johnson. Sorry, what is it? Yeah, the Johnson. Well, what is that? How do you tell if someone's good? Well, it says here in the glossary that if they're a purple dinosaur, that's a go. What? What if they're not? Well, if they're an orange orangutan, you have to run. Like, what are you talking about? You use this? This is what people use for assessments. And so the reason I love DNA is 35 years of data. 2.5 million people have taken this test. That's the data pool. 38,000 companies use this or have used this, growing by the day, 50 something countries. And so we just did our predictive validity study, which OMG does every 5 years, which every assessment company should be doing, validating the claims they make. Yep. So OMG went back and asked all the people that use sales DNA and hiring. And you remember this from our conversation. When a test is used for a candidate, these are custom built by the client and us, and we help them design. What does your ideal coffee cup salesperson look like, smell like, alcohol, and so on? So when someone takes the test, it comes back as one of three results. Recommended, which is you should talk to this person. We can't use it for hiring. All of you know this, especially if you're in California. So recommended for an interview. The second function of the test is worthy of consideration. And what that means is, well, we think they'll be good, but they didn't meet your criteria. Remember you said you wanted this? We're telling you they don't meet this. So it's up to you if you want to interview them. And then the last function of the test says, don't ever talk to this person again. It doesn't really say that. I suggested that to OMG. They didn't want to change it.
I think is it not recommended?
Yeah, not recommended.
Okay, just checking.
So here's the math from the study, which is insane. So they went back to all the clients that use this, and they said, for the salespeople you hired that we recommended, what percentage of them are above average performers on your team? Okay, what percentage are good? It's 72%.
Nice.
The national average for companies hiring salespeople is 24%, 25%. It's 3 times the average. But what was flabbergasting was that this test is not good to like predict superstars, right? No one is, right? Ask any pro team who drafted a person who's a dud. But it is immensely great at predicting dumpster fire hires. And what we found, people don't even believe the data, but we have all the reports. Of the companies who ignored the sales DNA test that said not recommended, and the company goes, no, we love Bill. You sure? Yeah, we love him. Yeah, but it says not recommend. No, we can fix him. Those companies, 100% of those people they hired were in the bottom half of their sales teams. Not one soul become a top performer, which is crazy.
I love the dumpster fire.
That's really, I'm a contrarian, but in hiring, you're not going to hire perfectly. No one is, ever. but you just can't hire poorly. That will ruin your company. Everyone's going to have misses. Everyone's going to have hits and so on. But if we can help companies not hire these disastrous situations, I don't know if you play poker or you know anything about poker, but in poker, there are women and men who make all the money. It's like, you know, a handful, right? And they take all the money off all the bad players. And the best women and men in the world who make millions and millions of dollars playing poker, do you know what their best skill is? I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It's not playing poker.
Oh, what is it?
It's reading people.
Ooh, good one.
But all the worst players in the world try to play poker. They spend no time on trying to understand people's tells, right? Which is where you know if they really have it or if they're bluffing. And the best women and men in the world, they know you don't have the best hand. They go all in. It's irrelevant what they have. They also know when you go all in and put all your money in the middle of the table and you're lying, you're bluffing, they can tell because they saw your earlobe twitch. That's how you make millions of dollars.
Interesting.
But that's also what companies can't do effectively when they hire. So if you are not trained as an interviewer, you have no idea how to be able to tell if someone's telling you the truth or not. You only have two options. Learn how to do that, which takes a long time, or use a tool that can tell you.
Yeah.
It's only those two.
Which is why I love profiles, because they're an incredibly efficient strategy and shortcut to give you insight into someone that otherwise would take months and months and months and tens of thousands of dollars to do. My husband was studying, we go to Palm Springs for a couple of weeks every year. I got my COVID timeshare because I was stuck in 2021. And I couldn't leave the U.S. to come to Canada. So he plays live doubles tennis. And so he was researching how to win doubles tennis. Well, it turns out the best way to win doubles tennis is to not make mistakes and to force errors on the other side.
That's right. That's poker, right?
Right.
The way that you win money in poker, believe it or not, is folding hands. It's not winning hands. It's folding really great hands because she has a slightly better hand. That's how people win in poker. And that's how your husband wins in doubles.
Well, and it's interesting because I think we tend to, I get seduced by the bright, shiny object. That's factory install with me. So I'm looking for the star person. I'm looking for the star player, the star salesperson. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to be amazing. They're going to be God's gift to our team and to our prospects. And yes, that's great to find them. However, I might be more successful eliminating the people who will never be more, not even average, not even in the middle, right? And that's actually how my company will succeed and grow. So that's a very, very interesting stat. And the cool research. I mean, I will not recommend a profile that's not been validated.
Right.
So that's actually why we're talking today, because I'm like, without those results, forget about it. As interesting as it is, no. Learn my lesson there.
One thing, Shannon, you just said that also would help a lot of entrepreneurs. You don't need superstar salespeople. And this is where so many companies make the mistake. And this is why I'm so process oriented. Build an amazing process. Then you just need a B player. You don't need the A. The A is luck. The A is drafting Tom Brady 199. That's the A. But you don't need that. You need the process to be able to have somebody that's pretty good execute. Somebody that's pretty good with a process will outperform everybody every time who's amazing, but in chaos. But it's not done. So it all ties in together.
Interesting. Because I started 33 years ago doing sales, right? And if I didn't kill, I didn't eat. It's one of those. It's 100% full commission, which was interesting and challenging, and you learn really fast that way. But it was much more chaotic. I did it based on relationship. I have a very consultative sales style, I guess you'd call it.
And you probably had the will to sell, right? Which is sort of this maybe next part we could share.
Apparently I do. But I'm excellent, not unique at sales. Like it's not something I went back to school and came up with the idea for a coaching program, the team programs at Coach. So I did it, which was interesting because I don't sell directly anymore. If anything, I sell from the stage. I don't sell one-on-one. So it was a little challenging because my circumstances are a little bit different. But let's talk about the three elements. Will to sell, sales DNA, and tactical.
Okay.
So let's talk about the will to sell, because this is the one when you do the profile. How long does it take roughly? It's not like 10 minutes.
The average 46 minutes.
Yep. Okay, perfect. And it's not an off-the-shelf retail product. It is something that, as you said, is customized for your company.
Yep.
So this is not just, I think I'm going to go log in and do it. This is an investment you'd be making in your own process and your own.
Because there's two uses, right? So the first use is for hiring. They're all custom built, right? The second use is evaluating your existing salespeople, sales managers, sales leaders. Those are not custom built, right? Those are the standard versions. But in hiring, that's why it's so predictive. You get to change the parameters. You get to weight things certain. I'm hiring outside sales. They better be good at prospecting. They better be good at hunting. So those three components make it up.
And because of all the research, if I value something and the world's saying, actually, no, you need more of this, there's that information there too.
Yes.
Don't weight that one so low. It's actually more important than you think. And the thing that you think is so incredibly vital, not so much.
Yep.
So I love that there is that probably negotiation in that. So will to sell it. Okay, I'm just going to read through the things.
Yep, we'll go through
So desire, commitment, outlook, responsibility, and motivation.
Yep.
Okay. So I did okay. My outlook apparently is really good because I'm looking at my results right now. So you have a target of 60. Okay. So that someone has to hit at least 60% on these.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit, we don't have to go through all of them, but why are desire, commitment, outlook, responsibility, and motivation so key? And if someone doesn't have those, forget about it.
And one easy analogy, I guess, if people are familiar with the EOS model, I don't know how many people listening are, but
fair number.
EOS, ironically, by the way, what's the S stand for?
System.
Oh, what a surprise. Everything's systems, y'all.
Yeah.
But EOS has something called GWC. Okay. Gets it, wants it, has the capacity to do it. If a person in a role doesn't GWC it, do you know what EOS suggests?
Bye-bye.
Okay. That's the will to sell. Same thing.
Right.
It's not going to change. So desire is, does this person have the desire to become a world-class sales professional? She does or she doesn't, and that's it. Yeah. You can't become a world-class violinist without having the desire to become a world-class violinist first. The second is commitment. There are things that salespeople despise doing, so they will avoid doing them like the plague because it makes them uncomfortable and they're not feeling great when they do it. You probably know the list. Prospecting is probably number one. CRM is probably number two. Expense reports is probably number three. Where did you guys, EPS reports? So those are things, right, that salespeople just will not do. So commitment is a measurement of whether or not a salesperson will do the things that make her uncomfortable in order to be successful. But in an interview, a salesperson will tell you they love all those. I love the phone. Give me a phone, get out of my way. And then they come to work and they're allergic to it. So we can tell you in 5 seconds whether or not they will do the tough stuff.
Yeah.
Outlook is a measurement of positivity, of how they feel in the situation they're in right now. Are they a glass half full, a glass half empty? Are they, Eeyore, right? As woe with me, fluid life sucks. You know what happened to me today? Yeah, I can take a guess. So you know those types of folks, right? So we look for people that have positive outlook, right? And when I lived in Costa Rica, it's funny, I thought of this. I was always glass half full, versus half empty and so on. And then I lived in Costa Rica and all the ticos and ticas, right? And what they taught me, and I've changed my thought on this, is I'm just happy I have a glass. Most of this world drinks out of their hands. And my glass has a crack in it. What? So you already know abundance mindset, much better than scarcity mindset. Yeah. So that's outlook.
For sure.
Motivation, I'll just save everybody some time. You can't motivate salespeople. Are we good?
Yep.
But what you can do is learn what drives them. And this goes back to part of what Daniel talks about in his book, Drive, but also what you're familiar with, the golden rule, I'm sure. And everybody on the call knows what that is, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated, right? You all know this. So you can pause the podcast now and write this down. Don't ever do that. Nobody cares what you think. I'm sorry. Yeah. I know some people are going to be hurt by that. You have to treat people the way they want. They want. That's the platinum rule.
Yes. I was going to say, that is the platinum rule, everybody. Super important.
Yep.
It means you have to be curious about what they want.
That's what motivation does in DNA. So it will let you know, is the salesperson extrinsically motivated, which are money, commissions, prizes, trophies, parking spaces, toys, plaques? Are they intrinsically motivated? Pride, joy, satisfaction, mastery of my craft? Or are they altruistically motivated, right? Mother Teresa, Gandhi, MLK. And the split of what three make up 100%. So as a leader of salespeople, I can't fathom pretending that I would know which one they are without that data. That's motivation.
Wow.
And then the last one is responsibility. Yeah. And this one is pretty crazy, but the bottom 90% of salespeople, so the worst ones on the planet that sell the least, when they don't sell something, who do they blame?
Somebody else.
Correct. I can't sell this. The logo's in the top right. I can't sell. By the way, next month is going to be a little light. I'm sorry, but Mercury's in retrograde and, this, I just can't, Good luck if that's your salesperson. We look for someone who takes full responsibility for their actions. So a high score there. We know it's on me, right? We don't blame others. I did it. So that's the will to sell. And without that, there is no chance that a salesperson becomes a top performer. We have the data. They may be a body. They may be somebody you pay 80 grand to use up your time, but they will never, ever be a top performer. And that's just one part. That's 5 of 21 components that are measured.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the first part.
And I like it because when we debriefed my profile, it was like, okay, again, if someone does not score adequately on this one, do not pass go, do not collect $200, do not proceed. It's like they can score high on the next sections, but if that is not there, it doesn't matter. You can't coach someone if they don't have the will. And just to tie this into a Kolbe thing, what I learned from Kolbe is about the 3 parts of the mind. There is the intellectual part, your cognitive. Never hurts, in my opinion. And I also finally realized we're not all the same. I thought we were all kind of pretty much okay. Turns out that wasn't quite the case. And that's only after I profiled for everything else. And if someone's still not working out, there's only one thing left. But anyway, so presume some decent intelligence. But then there's the passion, the motivation, the desire, right? And that's actually what kicks into gear the will. And will, I always put my hand on my gut, or its hands is another way to think about it. But this is, when does it actually go into action? And will, I'm so glad it's called this, because will is when people actually take what they know and take what they care about and do something with it. So you can't go around it. You can't ignore it. You can't go over it. If you walk over it, you're going to be left with a less than productive salesperson. So it's so aptly named, and I just want to stress this because without the will, it ain't happening. So anyway, total alignment with that. I love it. Yeah. So let's talk about sales DNA, and then we'll get to tactical. So sales DNA is interesting, and there's some fun ones if you want to pull out some of the key. We don't have to chat about all of them because, again, there's 20.
There's a couple major ones, right? So sales DNA is the middle component. There's 6 parts of sales DNA, but this is the way a salesperson acts, thinks, behaves, believes, right? So the biggest one is called the need to be liked. On the test, it says need for approval, but it's basically the moniker is the need to be liked. And roughly 8 out of 9 salespeople need their prospects to like them. This is a really destructive trait in a salesperson, let alone in a human, but in a salesperson, because if you need your prospect to like you, you will do everything you can to make the sale, including giving away the farm. You will take on bad deals because someone wants to buy from you and you're like, well, they like me. They really, really like me. No, this is bad. You will also be a poor negotiator. You will not say no, and you won't challenge prospects, which is what world-class salespeople do. And so the top 14% of women and men in sales, they don't care if you like them. What they want and earn is respect. They would rather be respected than liked. That's why they do the best. But the distinction is they're all still likable. You still have to be likable. Don't get that twisted. You just can't care if people like you. And that's a huge part.
I learned that lesson the hard way when I was 16. I did everything to get people to like me. And then finally I'm like, screw that.
Yeah.
It's like, what's way more important is to be respected. Now, the byproduct is people like me.
Yeah.
But if they don't, respect is so much more important. So that was a life lesson for me a long time ago.
That's a big one, right? The other big one in sales DNA is being comfortable discussing money.
Yes.
And 60% of salespeople, and by the way, y'all, this is 2.5 million people worth of data. Like, this is real. 60% of salespeople are uncomfortable discussing money. And this is all caused, right, by how we grew up. And I don't know what you were taught about money, but it was taboo. You just don't talk about it. And I
didn't score that well on this one either.
Well, most people don't, right? It's the majority of us aren't comfortable having financial discussions with people. We certainly don't want to talk about other people's money. And I told this a couple weeks ago in one of the other random cities I'm in every month. But when I started with Aflac, I had to practice on my mom. And we're doing life insurance or disability or something, right? And, you ask the questions. I'm like, hey, Mom, I need to know your height and weight and all this stuff. And then I'm like, hey, Ma, I need to know how much money you make. And if I didn't mention this earlier, my parents are the Costanzas, right, from Seinfeld. So my mom gave me a 2-word answer. And the second of those 2 words was you. So
I thought it was going to be none of your business. But
no, yeah, sort of, right. Yeah. The closest people to you will not tell you how much money they have. And this is why when we see what salespeople are saying, this like drives me crazy. And it's taught in sales training. Like, there is a question that is so intergalactically idiotic that salespeople ask prospects. It is the dumbest question in the history of Earth. Do you know what it is?
No.
What's your budget?
Oh, yes.
There's nothing dumber than that. You cannot ask a stranger, a prospect, how much money they're willing to give you for the value you've yet to show them. Can't do that. Actually, there is one question that's dumber than that, everybody. Don't do this. Only one question's dumber than what's your budget. So, are you expecting or... Only that's dumber, everybody. Don't do that.
I like it.
The second part of this money thing, and then we'll move on, is your worth, the value you believe you bring to the marketplace. And it's the reason most people don't become millionaires. It's not because they don't work hard or they don't have the skills. It's because they don't believe they deserve to be one. And I did this talk, an article once for the Professional Photographers Association of America. I never forget this. And I met these 2 gals, and they were both wedding videographers. And some of you know now, because you've probably been through this recently yourself or your own wedding, your daughter or whatever. It's not cheap, okay, to do one of these weddings, right, and have it all videoed. And I met these 2 ladies, and one of them charged $5,000 for her service, and one of them charged $12,000. Which one do you think was busier?
12,000.
Which one had 99% referrals?
12,000.
Which one discounted her prices?
The other one.
5,000. Which one had a waiting list?
12,000.
Same camera, same software, same city. One believed she was worth 12,000. One believed she was worth 5,000. This is why many entrepreneurs, coaches, right, consultants, they don't believe they're worth what they should charge. That's why they say, oh, I'll do it for $100 an hour. No. If you don't believe in your worth, that's what you're worth, right? And so that's a big part, right, of that DNA piece.
And it's interesting. I think a personal belief actually also makes it challenging to ask for the sale. And coach is not nothing. There's some zeros after the number. And so if you're not comfortable talking about money or that you're worth it, you also might question the value of what it is that you're selling. So that comfortableness with discussing money is, I think, really interesting. There's lots of psychological nuances.
Yep.
What's another key one from sales DNA before we move over to tactical?
I would probably say supportive buy cycle. And supportive buy cycle means a couple things, folks. So it's two parts. The first thing is, do you take forever to make decisions? So, for example, you go to a restaurant with someone, right, and they pick out the menu, right, and it's an hour later and they still can't decide what they want. If that's you as a salesperson, you're in trouble because you will then acquiesce and allow your prospects, right, 20 years, right, to make a decision. Mm-hmm. So that's one part. So that would be an unsupportive buy cycle. Somebody that takes forever to make decisions has an unsupportive buy cycle.
So is it kind of decisiveness? Is that?
Yeah, quick decisions.
Okay.
Yep. We all know this. You probably know this in coaching, right? It's shoot first, then aim. Not let's just keep aiming for 10 years.
Yeah.
But the other part of this,
right,
and I learned this from DNA, but the default of a salesperson is that we sell to people the way we buy.
100%.
And we don't have to go into, I teach it in animal types, but a lioness or a lion, for example, they buy on ego. So you would sell to a lion or a lioness based on how this product or service makes them look to others. Whereas somebody that's more deliberate, right, like an owl, they want to know all the stats, all the data, all the details, and then give me more. But if you buy like a lioness, you sell like a lioness, that owl's not buying from you. And vice versa. If you buy like an owl and you need every number on earth, and that's how you sell, and you're giving this lioness every number, and she's like, enough already. How much is it? And will it make me look better? That's supportive buy cycle. But none of this stuff's taught, right? And so you have salespeople who sell one way, and that's why they only close 1 out of 4 sales, because only people like them buy from them. So this is the training that has to be done, right? Not magic scripts and, magic selling systems and methodologies, right? This kind of stuff.
Cool. Let's touch on tactical. And I think these are the ones that are more coachable and trainable.
Yes.
My understanding.
These are the most coachable. So these are the skill sets. So a couple different ones, right? Hunting, reaching decision makers, building relationships, consultative selling is one of the most important ones here. Closing we measure. And this is the one that I actually disagree with, which I think will be sort of helpful for people.
Right.
Because I think closing is the most antiquated thing in the history of sales, right? It's just so pathetic and awful. Closing is for bad salespeople. So I actually want a low score here. I want somebody to be 0. Because if somebody's a 79 in closing, I know, right, they have a gold medallion and a plaid jacket and they sell timeshares to people. So I don't want the closers, right? Always be closing. No. That's what movies did, right? Why this perception of salespeople has been exacerbated so much, right, is because of the always be closing and Boiler Rooms and Wolf of Wall Street and stuff. But we need to be more like Chris, right? Like Chris Gardner. And nobody knows Chris, which is sad. Chris was what the movie The Pursuit of Happiness was based on. That's a real sales movie, right? Guts, will, your family, right? Sacrifice. Like that's a real sales movie. Nobody knows Chris, right? So we always gravitate, right, towards the slimy, slick, because that's what's glorified in Hollywood. So, we need more Chris Gardner.
Well, it's more dramatic. It's way more dramatic that way.
Tommy Boy, by the way, is the number 2 sales movie of all time. Tommy Boy. Y'all know what it is.
Good to know. And then you also have sales process and sales technology too.
Yep. And tech, by the way, The way we look at sales technology is broken down in 3 parts, right? So do I live, eat, and breathe in my CRM, right? Do I use it effectively because it's a great tool? Do I understand how to sell socially? So utilizing LinkedIn effectively, or maybe sometimes Twitter, Facebook, IG, whatever, TikTok, but it's usually LinkedIn on this test.
Yeah.
And then the last one's video proficiency, which I'm giving a talk on this actually tomorrow, but that is a competency-based sales skill that is not taught.
No.
Everybody's taught features and benefits. Yeah. And so if you don't know how to effectively sell and communicate over Zoom, you're in really big trouble. And you can look for this deficiency, or maybe it's an affliction. I'm not a doctor, but I did discover a medical condition, and it's called resting Zoom face. And some of you know what I'm talking about because you
there's another name for it that's not as polite.
You know the other name, right?
Yes.
But as a tip to everybody listening, like if you do communicate over Zoom or Teams or whatever, Google Meet, and like if you look like you just murdered a family of 6, that's not good for you for sales. When you look like this on a Zoom, like we can see you, like it's 2024. You know, these cameras, it's not a one-way mirror at the police station. Like we can see you. But when we show recordings of Zooms, right, for salespeople to their sales leaders, and we show them, their heads fall off. They cannot believe the person's doing that, right? Because they're not on camera, you know, they're down here, or, you know, the background, it's a bomb went, I mean, it's like, but that's a skill.
Or how they're dressed.
How they're dressed.
I'm like, dude, I don't care if you've got pajama bottoms on, but have a nice shirt.
Right. But that's a skill you want to measure in sales DNA. For example, if you were belly to belly sales, right? You were going to auto bodies, right? To sell floor mats. Then video proficiency, maybe that doesn't matter that much.
Right.
But if you're in tech or you're in services and you're on Zoom or Teams all day, you better be good at that. And you can't hire somebody that's not.
Yeah.
And so that's where some of these things are so customizable, but they apply to one sales role and not another. So why the generic testing thing isn't always good. It's got to be custom and specific.
This is so great. Between the 3 different sections, there are what, 21 you said?
21. Yep.
21. And even within those, they have nuances and distinctions.
Oh, yeah. There's maybe, I think at one time I counted 180 different things that we measure.
Yeah.
So, you know, part of hunting, for example, I think there are 12 or 14, right?
Yeah, there's a few.
Just part of that. So in the report, for those of you that haven't seen it, I mean, these are, I don't know how long yours, 40 pages long. It's a lot of data.
41.
Yeah, it's close. Now it's like, okay, we got the data. Now what do we do with it?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the next part.
Okay, we'll talk about that. It's interesting because, you know, most people I work with, capable, intelligent, been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
But I can look at these and go, okay, I would probably feel really confident about 7.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's like 14 more that I'm like, could use some work. Right. Or not everyone has all, I mean, at 80%, I would be thrilled.
Yeah.
That's my usual measure. But it's interesting. So even if you can check some of these boxes, there's way more. And I'm a maximizer, number 1, on my Clifton strength. So it's like, if you're into maximizing both your people and your team overall, and then your results, there's just a lot of richness and a lot of depth here. Yeah. And I can just imagine hiring new people. Oh my gosh, yes, please. But then with your existing team, and it can probably explain what's working. It can probably also give you some, and I know you're super excited about something about to launch in terms of how to help people get to the next level. Yeah. You know, hiring is one thing because we're actually always hiring salespeople, but actually working with the existing team to figure out where their strengths and non-strengths are and how they can up their game, presuming they've got the will to sell, is kind of fascinating. Like I'm just as interested in that part of it, which is kind of cool. We did our review, right? So we do it differently than maybe other OMG partners. Like it's cool, right? But we've already talked a lot about all the parts of this test. Is 40 pages long. There's 200 things you measure. If we had somebody take the test, let's say they're an existing salesperson, and then we just emailed them the test and go, oh, you read it. That is a disaster. Because even if they score a 98, our brain goes, what about this 2%?
So we do not allow that. So anybody, it is just us that takes this. Our team does the one-on-one review with the salesperson to help them understand the results. We would never send it in advance because they will only look at the negative and not all the positive. So we have to preface it and always talk about all the positive stuff. And by the way, in the test, it doesn't say this is a weakness, right? We even fixed the verbiage when we updated the test, and it says an area for growth, an area for improvement, those types of things. So it has to be given in the right context, or people will only find the negative.
100%. So you are incredibly excited about taking your coaching capabilities to the next level. So describe that, because it's imminent and we're excited about it. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's sort of a 4-year, vision, right? That when I first took the test and I was like, man, imagine if, right, we could identify all these things. And then what if we had training to, fix all these things? Mm-hmm. So that's what we've been working on. We currently have a process right now where we built all the content to do that. But what's imminent is we will be one of one on earth that has the capability when somebody takes their sales DNA test, we will then have AI and machine learning use the results of the DNA test to create a custom learning path specific to that salesperson for them and them alone. And so you can have a team of 3 salespeople, 3 different learning paths. Wow. You have a team of 33,000 learning paths. So that's what we're doing. And part of the impetus behind this, and I should give credit partially to this author, nobody knows who he is. I got introduced to him, thankfully, by my new COO, Brady. The guy's name's Todd Rose, but the book is called The End of Average.
The End of Average. It's one of my favorite books.
You know it?
Yes, I know it.
Oh, I am forcing my entire team to read it. Like, it is as life-changing for me as Atomic Habits was with James. Mm-hmm. And if y'all don't know this book, please read it. But the gist of it, and one of the stories you probably know about the pilots, but the military, in the 50s, right? They wanted to build and re-outfit all the planes, right? With custom seats and cockpits. And so they tested and measured 4,000 pilots plus to come up with this average, right? So they could just build this average chair and most of them would fit in it. So just think about the cost of re-outfitting every plane in the military, okay, in the 50s. You can figure out the number. Then when they started putting the pilots in these seats, out of 4,000, and I asked this to people, how many out of the 4,000 fit in the seat in the cockpit? And it was zero. So let's get the average, and the average fit nobody. And so this is sort of what started moving stuff around. And so now when I teach this, I actually teach it. I have a picture of our power seats in our car. Mm-hmm. And I ask, why is that in there? Why not just have one seat? And you can't move it. And then I ask people, what else is adjustable in a car? Mirrors, temperature,
steering wheel,
vents, everything. Because you can't just make one car with one seat. And unfortunately, that's how kids are taught. That's how sales training is delivered, how leadership coaching is done. Like, you can't do that. You have to have adjustable things for people. And it's one of your 4 C's. You talk about comfortable. If you put someone who's 6'4" into a car, and the person who just got out of the car is 5'4", but you told them you can't move anything, it's not going to be a fun ride for them. Mm-hmm. And that's training. And so we have to build custom training to the person, because there's 8 billion people on this planet and 8 billion different ones. And so why would we just jam them all into one training? So that's what we're pretty stoked about.
I love it. I love the book, The End of Average, because its point is average is only useful for numbers. Yeah. It is not useful for humans.
No.
His last chapter is brilliant about education and how to customize education.
Unbelievable.
But it's a whole other take on unique ability.
Yep.
Right? And that's what you love to do.
There is no fast learner for y'all, right? Oh, she's a quick study. No, she could be a quick study at learning guitar, but maybe not a quick study at baking a cake. Maybe she's a slower learner, right, on learning trigonometry. Maybe she's a really fast learner on algebra. Mm-hmm. But that's what happens. It's crazy that nobody knows who Todd is. It drives me nuts.
I know. Actually, I'm hoping he's going to listen to this because I really wanted to get him on this podcast.
Oh, it'd be amazing. I've reached out to him. I sent him a letter. Todd,
me too.
Call me, bro.
Yeah. No, me too. Something he was going to be, then he had a family thing happen because I'm like, oh my God, he's just the best.
TED Talk is awesome. Like, it's just, I would scream this guy to the mountaintops. And thanks to Brady for
And it will change your brain. It will change your brain about how to think about yourself. Turns out there's no such thing as an average human. They show you pictures.
Correct.
And the story about the pilot who just did this incredible rescue, I will not give it away, but it is worth reading the book just for that story because you will never forget the power of having adjustable seats in planes after you read the book. So yes, I love that you said that. That's one of my very favorites.
It's funny. People go, by the way, they're like, why aren't you promoting your book? I'm like, people can find it, right? But Todd's amazing, so I'd rather promote somebody else.
What is your book? Tell us about it.
People can look up later.
Tell me the name of it.
Let's just say Contrarian. Okay, will be in the title.
I haven't picked that up at all today.
Yeah.
I love it. So, Steve, as we wrap up, because you and I, turns out, can talk forever about all things sales. So what we've talked about is the context for a lot of people with sales. Sales does have a bad rap, and you clearly have a vision for how people can be these superb sales professionals and getting right fit people into the role and then coaching them up the wazoo in things that can be coached and screened out when there are things that cannot be coached and customizing it so that no one has to go through the same exact thing. So, play to their strengths and mitigate any non-strengths is obviously what we love. So I love it. If you had your druthers, let me just ask you this question to wrap up before I ask how people can find you.
Yeah.
What would the reputation of salespeople be? If just in your fantasies where everyone goes through this, you've got right fit people selling really great products, leaders who get how to work with them, kick-ass sales processes that are just the bee's knees. What does it look like? What would the words be to describe? Give me the new word cloud, if you will.
Well, the reverse of the ABC, right? Always be closing. Okay. The reverse, right, of that, or the other C, it's a couple C's. Always be curious and always be conscientious. And if we change it to an H, it would always be helping. I had a meeting yesterday and it was from another Vistage referral, whatever. And this guy wanted some help with something. And I said, ironically, his name's Will. Funny. And I go, Will, I can't help you, man. He goes, what do you mean? I go, you need help with something we don't do. We don't have that expertise. I got a few intros for you, but we can't help. And he said, Steve, I've talked to 10 consultants I got referred to. You are the only one that didn't try to sell me something. And he goes, we will be doing business in the future because I love what you do, but I thank you for not trying to sell me something. Like, what? Why is this unique? It's like, it's odd to me, right? Just tell people the truth. Then you don't have to remember what you said. It's not that
I have a short memory. That's exactly my philosophy.
Yeah.
So helpful, curious, authentic,
honest,
genuine, honest, caring. This was what the word cloud.
Yeah. Don't sell something to someone. Yes. That's what it should be. But transparent, right? I mean, it's not reciprocity. Those should be up there, but integrity, it's just the best in the world, all the best women and men in the world, they are those. It's not the word cloud that Daniel showed, right? The best in the world are those things, but it's not sexy. It's not promoted. It's not movie worthy, right? Which is sad, but those are the folks that have amazing lives and clients. And I don't know who, I spouted this out in some Vistage talk, but I said, how many of your clients would invite you, right, to their wedding? How many of your clients would show up to your funeral? that's when you know you really have, right, a great relationship with folks. Mm-hmm. And if you left your company, would they even care? Or they just keep buying from the next gal or the next guy? Yeah. So it's my mission to change that. So, one more thing. Am I allowed to mention a charitable thing?
Of course.
So thanks to Reinvigorated Now, you might not know, unfortunately, my uncle and my best friend passed away on the same day.
Oh, God.
But Charlie sort of re-inspired me to do this, along with Gary Sinise. So I came up with this idea a little while back called the Million Veteran Mission, which is to teach all of our amazing vets, right, how to sell. So we're doing it all for free. Nice. It's like a Tom Shoes type of thing is how I think we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Where we help a company, right, and they have 12 salespeople that they want us to coach, teach, and they can donate 12, right, trainings, to vets. So if anybody listening wants to help us support these brave, women and men of ours, please reach out. So that's my super exciting part I forgot to mention.
That is very, very cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
And very generous and very enlivening for people. And it's interesting as you talked about the reverse word cloud, which I think we should definitely make.
Yeah.
The people who do that, they might be more stealth. Maybe it's not talked about.
Right.
But they win. Yeah. They're like your top poker players. They know the deal. They're out there creating value. They don't worry about other people's reps. They just be their best selves and they create enormous value and have a very positive impact because they are helping people solve problems.
Yeah.
So if you want to be one of those stealth people, here's a great template on how to do that. So thank you for going in depth and sharing all the cool things and doing the deep dive so people can really understand what this particular profile measures. And I love the categories. I've recommended, worthy of consideration, not recommended, aka possible dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very helpful. So if people want to find you, ask questions, learn more, grab your book, all the things, how do they track down Steve Heroux?
Easy ways. LinkedIn. We're on there a lot. Post every day, as much value as we can bring to the community. The Sales Collective's our website, and Kate, who's incredibly amazing. And so if y'all want to reach out to Kate, of course, right? She's just Kate at the Sales Collective. That's her email, or Kate Norton on LinkedIn. She's incredible. I am lucky and honored and can't believe we get to work with people like her. So I'm just excited to be on here and share some crazy thoughts about sales and leadership. And they may not be normal, but that's okay.
Well, I have a sense that everyone listening isn't really interested in normal and is really interested in an advantage. And those words that you talked about, being curious, conscientious, have integrity, be transparent, be authentic. So I think what you're saying is more, well, certainly that's what I care about and that's what I talk about. So I think you're going to find a like-minded community. And I know it's really powerful, especially in sales. Sales is still hard to get our arms around. And I think because it's been broken down in so many ways, your points about the sales process were invaluable. And I know something we've worked hard at Coach, and we're still a work in progress, much, much, much better than it was.
Yes, ma'am.
So just a really rich conversation, as I knew it would be, Steve. So thank you. Thank you very much for spending the time and sharing your expertise and passion with us.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hope to talk to y'all soon.
Awesome.